Doom Vivamus Vivamus Epicureans. This is the BCE Comics Pod one-shot edition. I'm your host, Nick Smith, and I'm joined by...
Stojr from Stojr Shelf. How's it going, Nick?
I'm doing well, particularly since we are participating in Kurtis Findlay's Epic Marvel Podcast Reading Club, and this one-shot is going to be our brief thoughts on today's issue, which is Uncanny X-Men number 193. I didn't write the title down. Did I say that well
it's
enough?
our special double-sex issue, and it's War Hunt 2.
War Hunt 2. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so Thunderbird is seemingly back from the dead, and he kidnaps the retired Banshee to begin his plan for revenge. Now, this Thunderbird, however, is John Proudstar's brother, Jimmy Proudstar, and he brings Banshee back to the correctly named Cheyenne Mountain this time, the home of NORAD. So he's not calling it Death Mountain anymore. As a Coloradan, I'm happy for that correction. All right. So anyway, Cheyenne Mountain, this is the home of NORAD and the place where his brother was killed. Here he lays a trap for the X-Men with the help of the other Hellions, Empath, Roulette, and the first appearance in the comic books of Firestar. Well, the X-Men fly out to Colorado to rescue Banshee, and Empath uses his powers of controlling people's emotions to cause chaos inside NORAD, turning the humans against the X-Men who infiltrated the base to find Banshee. During the course of this, Thunderbird faces off against Wolverine and Kitty, but finds he doesn't have it in himself to kill either or both of them. And the same goes for when he escapes and encounters Professor X alone and vulnerable. He just cannot enact his revenge because he knows that it's misplaced. Well, the rest of the X-Men mop up the rest of the Hellions and return with them to the mansion. The X-Men are now public outlaws, though, for having invaded NORAD, but they allow the Hellions to return to the Massachusetts Institute and to their teacher, Emma Frost. All right, Stojr, what are your thoughts here?
I like this issue a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought the art was really strong. I really like the cover. I think there's some hilarious gags with, having Professor X in the Morlock garb and the kind of chains and stuff in the beginning of the book. I was great to see Banshee again. I'd love to see him using his powers, but he still hasn't gotten those back as far as we know. I think John Proudstar looks awesome in this book. I think Firestar looks awesome. Great costume. I'm a little bit. This is again a situation where I'm scratching my head about. Should I be reading New Mutants? Like, is John in there, or are they kind of backdooring him into the Hellions via this comic, and then he'll show up there later? I honestly don't know. I don't know if if this is the revelation of of the first time he's been in a book, or if that happens in New Mutants.
It does, Stojr. I looked that one up. It seems like he comes out of nowhere in this one, but his introduction was in New Mutants number 16. I haven't read it though, so I don't know how that introduction was handled.
Oh, and you said 16, so it's during the Demon Bear saga or thereabouts. Okay. Or right before it, I think maybe. Okay. So that's where that introduction would be. I haven't read it yet either, but that would be where Kitty and Doug go, where we had that sort of cliffhanger where Kitty and Doug go, and she gets captured by Emma earlier in the book. It's also interesting, I think we talked a while back about how Emma Frost is, considered a villain for so long, and how it's weird in modern X-Men how she's, not. But you see the seeds of that here. These students love her, and he is Professor X is allowing them to go to her as another student, as another teacher, even as far back as this. So. So that's interesting. I think the popular culture of the Pride of the X-Men or the video games or other things have kind of maybe built up how long Emma was a villain, because I'm pretty sure she was knocked out for half the time, and she's really only a villain in the first two appearances. Maybe I guess maybe you can consider that New Mutant 16 a villain too, because she's kind of kidnapping Kitty, but she's not a regular adversary of the X-Men. It's only been a couple times. So I think the issue's strong. The other thing is, I mentioned this last time in the gift, but Kitty using her powers. I think it's so interesting to see her as a proactive, offensive, stealthy, confident, member of the team. Throughout this whole book, and that is juxtaposed with some of Nightcrawler's, lack of confidence and the struggles as a leader throughout this book. But yeah, you see her taking Wolverine through the entire mountain throughout these panels here on the screen. So I think all of this is really strong. As much as Wolverine, yells at her for making an amateur mistake in here, the rest of the issue, she's really showing off her powers and kind of being, proactive with that stuff. What do you think?
Yeah. I enjoyed this. This has a lot of things that got me thinking and researching and so forth, which is good. As as someone who does history, I enjoy that sort of thing. I mentioned earlier that I like that Claremont is no longer trying to call this Death Mountain. It's Cheyenne Mountain. That is its name. So we're finally getting the record corrected on that, although he still has the location wrong. It's south of Colorado Springs, not west of it, but that's okay. It's fine. This was the 80s. And also having the Hellions go inside NORAD on a tour might seem really weird if you're thinking about it on the surface of, this is a government installation, but it reminded me that they did used to do that. My father once went on a tour of NORAD in the 70s, I think. Maybe it was the early 80s. I was too young to go, or something else was happening and I don't remember. And I remember when I was younger that I wanted to do that, but 9/11 happened, and then I think that put an end to all the tours inside NORAD. Although the base inside Cheyenne Mountain is now like just an auxiliary base, and I think the actual headquarters are in Peterson Air Force Base or something like that. But anyway, it's it's a little bit of my home right there that they're getting to. And I was surprised to see Firestar. I had forgotten that this was the issue she was first introduced in. Are you familiar with Firestar from the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends cartoon show?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I watched that as a kid. I was too young to remember or follow it, but I remember watching it. And she was introduced. She was a character introduced on that show and made her way over to the comics via this, right?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, same thing. Stoger, it scares me sometimes our parallels here. I remember renting a VHS tape of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends constantly when I was a kid, and watching it over and over again. So, having her be brought officially into the Marvel Universe here, I'm sure it had to happen at some point, and here we are. It got me thinking, well, why was she introduced in the TV show and not the comics first? And so I started delving into it, and the reason why that happened is the creators of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends wanted to use Iceman and the Human Torch as the Amazing Friends. And the Human Torch makes sense because he is one of Spider-Man's friends. And then you throw Iceman in there and you have the fire and ice dynamic, which of course that makes things interesting. But then when it came to actually make the show, they couldn't use the Human Torch because of some licensing issue. He was being used in something else. But they already came up with all these ideas of having fire and ice characters, so they needed a new fire character, and hence why they made Firestar. And now you have another dynamic of you have also a girl character, so that's good too. So Claremont finally brings her in, although I think this might be a year or two after the TV show ended. But hey, Angelica Jones survives.
So two quick, interesting facts about that you may or may not know. One is that's where that Human Torch licensing issue is also why we get Herbie in the Fantastic Four. So they couldn't put the Human Torch in the cartoon because there was some weird licensing thing, and they needed a fourth member, so they introduced Herbie.
Now that you say that, you're making me, and maybe this is just like one of those myths that gets passed along. But wasn't it also a fear that kids might light themselves on fire, that they didn't want to have the Human Torch?
I think that was a little part of it, but I think people, what I've heard, and who knows what the trust or what I've heard is that like that was like the rumor, but the real reason was just the licensing issue when it came down to it, because they had him licensed for something else, and that something else just never materialized. So that's what it kind of came down to. And then the other little FYI is, the Bendis did Ultimate Spider-Man in the 2000s, right? It ran for about 150 issues. Well, when they get to somewhere in the 120s or something like that, he has Spider-Man as amazing friend. So his roommates are Iceman and the Human Torch. So in that book,
I've read those, but I don't remember that.
yep.
Yeah.
In fact, at his death, at the end, spoilers, and he comes back, and the Ultimate Universe is gone, and it's a different Ultimate Universe now, so it doesn't really matter. But they're there at his death. They fight the Sinister Six, and they get taken out, and he has to fight them with it. So yeah, and then they do introduce sort of a Firestar like character, but she doesn't like stick around. So they even have that. But they live with him for 2 or 3 years in the comics.
Yeah. Gosh, now you're just sparking a memory that I had forgotten of. I kind of like. Sorry, we're now going to have an Ultimate Spider-Man discussion. I kind of liked how they had Peter Parker and Kitty Pryde dating in that. I don't know why. I like that. I thought that worked. Kind of. Fits
Bendis is a huge Kitty Pryde fan, so she comes along for a lot of what he does. He had her out in the Guardians of the Galaxy. He had her in the Ultimate Spider-Man book. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, back to this one, back to X-Men. I like what this issue is trying to do. Obviously, it's to revisit that initial story that Claremont worked on when he first joined the X-Men, but in a new way. Granted, it's 100 issues since Giant Size X-Men #1, I think, right? If we actually add it up. Or maybe not, but either way, it's Claremont's first story. He's kind of revisiting it, and that was fun. I enjoyed it. So I don't think I have anything more to say there. Stojr, any other final thoughts?
Only to say that yes, it's 100 issues since Giant Size. If you're only counting the X-Men issues, because the next issue of Uncanny, or at the time it was just X-Men, that he does is 94. So that's
here's where I prove I'm not a math person, but now that I think about it, if we include 94 as issue 1, then I guess 193 is issue 100, is it not? Because 194 would now be 101.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah.
I always throw myself off with that.
But hey, this is comic book math. Like, if we want to, when we want to figure out like the 700th issue, we'll contort ourselves into whatever we need to, just so we can get an anniversary before the quarter ends.
Yeah,
so.
If we need to bump this up to issue 200, we've got mini series that we can throw in here and just make that a part of the official numbering now. It's fine. Order doesn't matter anymore.
We've done more than 100 of these. So if you think about it, like, this is the 100th for him, but like, we've had, fanfares and, annuals and all that stuff. So we've done more than 100 issues.
Yeah, I was looking at the number the other day. I think we're actually... Oh, our numbers are counting the shorts now. So we're over 200 because of all the shorts that... All right. Anyway, fun math. All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. If you enjoy our thoughts, follow us on YouTube. We're going to read, rate, and review a full Big Collected Edition comic once a month, plus these daily one-shots. Thank you very much, and we will catch you next time.